out so much on the channel. Just getting this video to, you know, let's just say 500-600 likes would really do a lot, and it really means the world to me. And with the tier listings I have come up with for the S tier team, or teams I should say, are the NBA champions. NBA champions, I gotta say it like that because there's a question mark at the end of it, so teams I can see becoming NBA champions, contenders, wouldn't surprise me. The next tier are the 8-tier teams with great, but, which are teams that are super duper close to winning the championship. They can still do it. It would be, you know, really cool to see, but they may be not that close to being the contenders. Then we have the playoff teams, which are the B-tier teams, which are just a solid group of playoff teams. We have the mid-tier teams, which are just the C-tier teams, which are just some mid-teams. Could be play-in teams, could bottom out and just tank the season, kind of in between. We have the tier of teams, which are teams that are just, they're kind of just there. They're kind of just hovering around that bad team to okay team tier. And then you have the F-tier teams, the yikes tier, which are just teams that are yikes. And the first team they actually have on this is the Portland Trailblazers, which is obviously very funny. Yeah, I know Portland pretty well, and the Portland Trailblazers are going in the NBA championship tier. No, they're going in the yikes tier, actually. They're going at the very bottom of this tier list. The Portland Trailblazers are a team of young guys, some oldies who definitely need to be traded at some point in time this NBA season, like Jeremy Grant. No, Anthony Simon's name's been thrown out there a lot. Robert Williams, Matisse Thybulle. You can argue DeAndre Ayton. There's so many guys on this roster that need to be traded, and a lot of young guys that still need to blossom into something, like Scoot and Shaedon Sharpe, and Damani Kamara has been a good rookie for them last year. And obviously with Donovan Clingan now being the number 7 overall pick. Number 7? Was it 7? 6? Doesn't matter. They have a young stud in Donovan Clingan who's really exciting as a big-time center. But they're still gonna suck, and I'm so happy about that. Blazers getting Cooper Flag next year. I will cry on the channel if the Blazers get the number 1 overall pick. They're gonna be tanking for it too. Next team we have is actually the Brooklyn Nets, and since the Brooklyn Nets just traded their guy in Mikal Bridges, kind of funny, back-to-back teams are going in the yikes category. Oh no. Now with Brooklyn having their own pick this upcoming year, trading away Mikal Bridges, getting a lot of draft capital from that trade, they're going to be tanking, and they're going to be one of the worst teams in the entire NBA. Next up, we have the New Orleans Pelicans. The New Orleans Pelicans made a trade this past offseason, getting DeJounte Murray and still keeping Brandon Ingram on the roster. Zion also still on the roster. Still having that forward sort of mesh of Trey Murphy, Herb Jones. I can see this team being almost like a solid playoff team. Is that weird? Is that too high? That might be too high for this team. Obviously, of course, if Zion can stay healthy, this team is pretty dangerous in my opinion, and they got defensive versatility, they got some offensive capability. Maybe somehow they get some more veterans in there at some point in time. I'm not sure. Maybe just some more depth at the center position too would be kind of nice for them. And that team's healthy, and I'm looking at these teams as, you know, healthy teams. I think the team actually is sneakily pretty good. We have the New York Knicks up next. Knicks are great, but they're great, but in my opinion, I still don't think they have enough oomph on that team. Yes, they just traded for Mikal Bridges, they got OG, Josh Hart, they got Julius Randle still on the roster, and yes, they have Jalen Brunson, who's definitely arguably a top 3 point guard in the NBA when he's really going, one of the best playoff performers in last year's NBA season. But in my opinion, and as I've stated this so much, and it's definitely like an NBA hot take that I have, having Jalen Brunson be your team's best player cannot win you an NBA championship. I'm sorry. Now, of course, injuries are a thing, and what if this happens, what if that happens? Can they win the championship? Absolutely yes, and that would be so dope. But it would have finals for them to win, in my opinion. They're great, but I think they're so close to being there, but not really there yet. San Antonio Spurs are they're an team. They're definitely like a team where I could see them, you know, trying in the first half of the NBA season. Victor Wembanyama, some good rookies around him. You got Chris Paul on the roster as well. I can see this team kind of almost battling for a playing spot somewhere around 10, 11, maybe sneaking into 9. I have no idea, but I think eventually that team is going to bottom out at the end of the year, trying to get maybe like a top 8 pick in the draft next year, top 10 potentially, and still surrounding Victor Wembanyama with the best team possible, and that's going to be through the NBA's draft. They're going to be decent in some runs, but they're still just way too young with Victor Wembanyama. Next up, we have the Atlanta Hawks in... Oh man, where would I put Atlanta? Like, Atlanta's like right in between mid and like they're a team that I can see as like a 10 seed, 9 seed play-in team. You know, they got the number 1 overall pick in Zachary Richardson. It's basically kind of just the same team around Trae Young that didn't really do a lot last NBA season, which kind of is scary, but maybe that team just needs to stay healthy. And they got a playoff-ish kind of team, which isn't the worst. We just gotta wait and see how that team really plays. This team could definitely bottom out again like they did last year. Well, actually, they didn't bottom out. They just got really lucky and got the number 1 overall pick. So maybe that's what they just need to do again and get another good NBA draft pick next year. But in my opinion, they're kind of the definition of mid. Maybe not even mid. The Cleveland Cavaliers are definitely a solid playoff team. I think for sure keeping Donovan Mitchell, on that team is going to be super beneficial for that team in the long run, and still having guys on the team like Darius Garland, that's the name I was looking for, and Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley still progressing in his own skill and just deepening the roster as much as they possibly can is going to be super important to them. They're a team that I could see having like an Indiana Pacer run like they did last year, and maybe, you know, if things fall their way, can make a finals run, well, Eastern Conference Finals run, that is. And they got the star power to do it with Donovan Mitchell. We got the Washington Wizards up next, and wow, the yikes teams are really piling up here at the start of this video. Washington are going to be yikes next year. They're going to be maybe the worst NBA team next year. That team is, in my opinion, looking still for that go-to guy. It's not Kuzma, it's not Jordan Poole, and so far from what I've seen, it's definitely not the number 2 overall pick, Alex Sarr. He had an atrocious NBA Summer League. I think he had a game where he didn't score in like 20 shots. It was really bad. We have the LA Clippers up next, and guys, controversial. LA Clippers, they're gonna be mid next year. Now, I don't know if that's the most hot take out there because, of course, Paul George is not a LA Clipper anymore, and Kawhi Leonard is, well, Kawhi Leonard. They did keep James Harden. They lost Russell Westbrook. That team is not as deep, not as star-heavy anymore. In my opinion, that team is just waiting for their rebuild to start because they traded all their draft picks for Paul George, and now they just lost Paul George for nothing. So I think that team's going to be pretty mid next year. Maybe could they find their way into the playoffs for sure, but who knows. Next up, we have the Dallas Mavericks, and holy cow, yeah, I think the Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Wouldn't surprise me. They were in the finals last year, and man, the way they played in the NBA playoff run that they had really opened my eyes to not only just obviously how good Luka Doncic is. Trust me, I know how good Luka is. I pick him for MVP every single year. But the guys around him are actually quite capable. Now, of course, adding Klay Thompson to that roster and just building that camaraderie with a team that was just in the NBA Finals, I think that team is going to kind of piggyback off of that run next year. The Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves are great. But I think when it comes to the Minnesota Timberwolves, I still just think Anthony Edwards is not there yet in his own progression as a player to be a team's best player to win an NBA championship. I don't think he's there yet. Could it take another couple years and a couple more playoff appearances? I think yes. Karl Anthony Towns was really good last year. Obviously, Rudy Gobert won Defensive Player of the Year, and the defense around that team was super stellar. Can that carry into this year? Maybe. We'll have to see. Could they win the championship? Sure. Just like the Knicks. Could they? Sure. But I think it would take a lot more ifs and buts for them to get there than a team like Dallas, just in my opinion. Once Anthony Edwards, though, does hit that peak, I think Minnesota, if they keep the sort of style of team around for a long period of time, I don't want to say they're undoubtedly going to be title contenders. I just don't think they're there completely yet. We have the Houston Rockets, who are they're pretty I, in my opinion, like what they have with Sengun and Ahmed Thompson and Jalen Green. They still have their veteran questionable pieces like Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, and Jabari Smith Jr. might make a jump, and they're definitely picking up the pace with this roster. And obviously their draft pick last NBA season, well, technically not last NBA season, last draft, with Reed Shepherd arguably already being the #1 guy for Rookie of the Year. They're looking pretty good, but I still think they're a team that's not going to be, pushing for anything super crazy. Are they going to be like a playoff contending team, 8, 9 in that area? Probably not. Are they still going to be like a team that it really wouldn't surprise me if they just bottomed out and tanked the whole half of the season? Yes, it would not surprise me. Could they be a playoff team, though? I think that's what they're hoping for. I kind of have to wait and see. Next team is Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma could be NBA champions. I think yes. Honestly, I think OKC right now, I don't want to say last year was the run that they needed, but last year was such a lackluster run for OKC. Like, they really disappointed a lot of people, and I think this year they're again kind of like what Dallas is doing, piggybacking off of their playoff disappointment instead of with Dallas's excel what they had. I think OKC is going to carry what they didn't do in the next year, getting Alex Caruso, having a year of camaraderie with that young squad. I still think they're probably going to be the #1 seed in the West. I think they're going to be maybe even better than they were last year, and honestly, if they won the NBA championship, really wouldn't surprise me. You have the Sacramento Kings now, who are... Is Sacramento a playoff team? Or are they just kind of mid? I'll keep them in playoff for now, but that is a team that might be falling out of that. They're definitely kind of in between. Yes, I do think Sacramento is talented enough to be like a solid 6-5 seed in the West and just looking really solid. Now having DeMar DeRozan, De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis having a great year, hopefully just keeping that team more together. But I could also see that team just barely floating above being a play-in team, like an 8 to 9 seeded team. That's probably more realistic, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and just saying they're a playoff team. I will assume at the end of the year, after all the play-in games, Sacramento will be in the playoffs. Our next team is the Denver Nuggets. This is also going to be pretty controversial. Denver Nuggets, they're great, but they're kind of like an A-tier team for me. I think definitely they're just not what they used to be. They're not as deep. I think they had their moment in the finals with Nikola Jokic. They do have the best team in the NBA, but that team is just not what it used to be. The depth, the spark, the grittiness that team used to be. Just a powerhouse in the West. And I think they're just a really good team, but I think a lot of teams can beat Denver in a 7-game series. I think, especially another year in, not really acquiring or getting any good assets, not really building on what they had, which is desperately what they needed to do. And now I think they also tricky one. I think they're in between like the mid and team. I'll put them in mid for now because they are just a very mid NBA team. They still have Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Brandon Pajimski, whatever his name is, looked really solid last year, excelling off of that. Kuminga getting off of that as well. Maybe some of their young guys pop. That team is still put together and still deep enough to be a playoff contender-ish team, but again, I can see this team just bottoming out and just throwing the season away. You know, as Steph Curry already won his NBA championship by winning the gold medal this year. So honestly, even if Steph Curry just was hurt and had to sit out a bunch of games this year, I wouldn't surprise me just seeing the Golden State Warriors just completely bottoming out and just tanking the season this year. We have the Boston Celtics up next. Honestly, I should probably put Boston in their own category because they are NBA champions. No question mark. I think they are everyone's favorite to win the title next year, especially giving Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum the chips these guys have on their shoulders going into next year. It would not surprise me if both these guys are averaging 30 plus points per game at the same time. These guys are going to be showing the world, oh, wait, how did you guys already forget about us? Jason Tatum getting benched the entire Olympics, Jaylen Brown not even getting offered an attempt to even join the team. Just coming off of winning Finals MVP, mind-blowing. The Miami Heat are the Miami Heat mid. Oh god, that's gonna make a lot of Heat fans mad. Guys, are they mid? I think they kind of are, to be honest. And you know what, the mid category is getting kind of heavy. I might need to start moving some people in and out. But you know what? At the end of the day, if they are healthy, I do see them making the playoffs. Just like with the Sacramento Kings, at the end of the day, when all the playing games are done, even if they are the 10th seeded team, they're going to make the playoffs. If Jimmy Butler's healthy, if Bam is there, if that team is just playing well enough, which, playoff Jimmy, playoff Miami, ooh. Anyways, if that's there, I think they'll find their ways in the playoffs. And again, I gotta think of these teams as fully healthy, and fully healthy, that team is still pretty solid. I think they'll make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. We have the Phoenix Suns, which are another team just finding themselves having kind of a sneaky NBA offseason, signing guys that I think will make a pretty good difference in their team, and still having Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. Yeah, that's not too bad. Now, sure, they're a playoff team, but can they really do anything in the playoffs? Obviously, we saw last year absolutely getting humiliated. Not really the best team to win an NBA championship with, but will they make the playoffs? I think yes. That's, I don't want to say almost a no-duh thing. We have the LA Lakers now. Oh god, the LA Lakers. I'm wearing a Lakers shirt right now if you can't tell. Oh my glorious king. They're in the mid-tier. I don't see at the end of the day the Lakers guaranteeing them a playoff spot like I would some of the other guys above them. They're gonna, in my opinion, they are like the tippity top of mid. I can see them going to the playoffs, maybe surprise upsetting some teams, making like a Western Conference Finals run, aka what they did a couple years ago. Or I can see them just not making the playoffs at all, and that's the end of that. So I can see it going both ways. You have the Milwaukee Bucks. They're great, but I think Milwaukee is not nowhere near deep enough to be a true title contender. Sure, this team is another year in. They got their head coach that maybe they wanted to have, question mark. Dame finally a full year there, all the family drama out of it, and hopefully just a little bit more comfortable. Hopefully Middleton can stay healthy, Giannis can stay healthy, and you pray to God that some of these guys on that team step up because they need it desperately. That team is not nowhere near deep as they were when they won the championship a couple years ago, and defensively also not as good. Can they win the title though? I think yes, but then they still have one of the best duos in the entire NBA with a healthy Dame and a healthy Giannis, but it's a lot of buts and ifs for that team to really make it there. and they are, you know, they're a team that, sure, if they want to be a fighting team and try their best, sure, I can see them battling in that play-in 10 area, 9 area spot in the Eastern Conference. Scotty Barnes might make a big jump, and maybe they're even above that. But I see them mostly being a team that's just kind of floating up and down, up and down, up and down all year, and finding at the end of the year them just being like the 12th seed, and no, the 12th, yeah, probably like the 12th seed in the Eastern Conference, 11th maybe, and just that's the end of that, or just barely making it out of the play-in spot. Utah, also see them in that same category. That team will very quickly be a yikes team as soon as the news hits that they traded Lauri Markkanen. Now, they actually just extended Lauri Markkanen on a pretty big contract, but in my opinion, that's just like salary filler, just to throw a team somewhere, just to maybe get some more assets back for him. So even though they just re-signed Lauri Markkanen, I don't think this is like a for sure thing of keeping Lauri Markkanen. Same thing with the Detroit Pistons. Wow, we're filling up this category now, guys. The Pistons are a team that I think this year will be their trying year. Like, I don't think they're just going to just absolutely just dog water this year like they usually do every single year. I think with Cade finally kind of showing disgruntledness in this team and the guys they have on the roster, I think that team is, this is going to be so crazy for me to say, the talent they have on that team with Asar and Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, the draft pick they got this year with Ron Holland, like they have guys with names that just are so skilled basketball players that they just need to be put together in a way that will make them successful. We have the Chicago Bulls, who are also pretty wow, this is now becoming a new sort of record here of teams in a row. Chicago lost DeMar DeRozan. They have Zach LaVine. He's gonna get traded at some point in time. Their draft pick this past draft was Matas Buzelis, who I was really high on in this year's NBA draft. Had a pretty good summer league as well. Looked pretty promising. I just don't think he's gonna have enough pop to really do anything for this team. Charlotte Hornets are in the same category. My God, this a D-tier section of teams is looking pretty rough. In my opinion, when it comes to this sort of squad of guys, like all these teams, like Toronto, Hornets, Chicago, Detroit, they're just teams that have bright spots here and there. But like I'm 2 months into the NBA season, if any of these teams just completely tanked the rest of the year, I would be like, yeah, that makes sense. And Charlotte, with having LaMelo Ball on that team, that team is just not too skillful yet. I think they have the pieces for them to make a plan, or maybe even a playoff spot, but until I see it happen, I just would not put any sort of faith into that team. We have the Orlando Magic. I think the Orlando Magic are playoff teams for sure. Their defense last year was killer. Paolo Banchero is looking like not even just an all-star, he's looking like a star in this NBA sort of picture of the future, and I really hope he gets to show that even more next year. I think they are a team that it wouldn't surprise me if they make like a big trade, like trading multiple draft picks, maybe a couple guys they don't really need all that much for maybe a budding star, or even just a star and outright, and really making a push for something special. Would not surprise me if we see that next year. We have the Memphis Grizzlies. I will put them in playoff team for now, but I think a lot of people are forgetting how great the Memphis Grizzlies were. But I need to pump the brakes a little bit to wait and see for that to happen with John Morant and everyone healthy there, Jaren Jackson Jr., the rise of Gigi Jackson. See how good Zach Edey is going to be for this team and how that is really going to fit for that roster. Are the Indiana Pacers, who are, of course, an NBA playoff team. Tyrese Halliburton is great. Pascal Siakam, long-term there in Indiana now. And what we saw last year, they went all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, kind of a little bit of a Mickey Mouse little run to the NBA Eastern Conference Finals with almost in a bad word, a crap ton of injuries and things rolling and bouncing their way to get them there. Sorry, Indiana fans, but there's no way they even get past the first round without that happening. But it happened, and I think that was a good experience for those guys, like an Andrew Nemhard, or maybe eventually Ben Mathurin, sort of seeing that and wanted to get that for himself. Him coming back as a fully healthy player could really be something that maybe that team needed. Where are the Philadelphia 76ers? That's super random. I guess the last team is Philly. And honestly, I gotta think of these guys fully healthy. All these teams fully healthy. The NBA champions? I think, yeah. I think that team is fully healthy. Like NBA 2K, 0 injury generated season in NBA playoffs. Paul George. Julius Randle, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey is a crazy 3-star head with a pretty solid and deep roster built around them. I think they got what it takes. Having Joel Embiid, who a lot of people forget is definitely arguably the best player in the NBA when everyone is fully healthy, and if you can get at least just a healthy playoff run with Joel Embiid in the mix, that team is as dangerous as anyone, especially when you add someone like Paul George on their side, another year under his belt with Tyrese Maxey kind of having the helm of the entire team last year because Joel Embiid was so injured. I think Tyrese Maxey is ready to take an all-star level leap, and as long as the others on that team buy into their roles, I don't see why that team couldn't be a title contending team. So I got Thunder, Mavs, Sixers, and Celtics kind of as my top 2 teams, at least title contender wise, for both conferences, and the rest under them. So I think that's gonna be it, guys. That was a lot of fun. I really miss just blabbering on about NBA playoffs with you guys, NBA playoffs, just NBA basketball in general, and that was super fun. So make sure you guys, of course, like the video if you guys do like these sort of sports whisper ramble videos. If you miss them just as much as I do, make sure to leave a like on tonight's video just to show support. Or if you guys want more sports whisper rambling and ASMR videos, definitely let me know down in the comments. Anything else you guys want me to sort of whisper about, or you can agree, disagree, talk about your own NBA favorite team or least favorite teams and where you'd rank them. And I love you, and I'll see you again in another ASMR video very, 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 very soon.